People always used to say to me, just price it really high and then you won't get it, and then you do get it and then they don't pay. But sometimes you go to a job and you think, I don't want to do this job. They chase you for a quote and it's kind of hard to give an explanation as to why, and then because you don't send the quote they put you a bad review. And it's hard because you don't want to offend people.
We've always been paid for every large job. Have we walked away from smaller payments? Yeah.
For any trade business to survive, it must attract clients. So when tradespeople start out, it can be common to find yourself attracting the wrong type of client, or even worse, no clients at all. So how do you attract the right customers into your trade business? That's a question I put to Cathy and Tommy, who both run successful electrical and heating and plumbing businesses. Tommy explains his process of identifying and selling to 5-star customers. We discuss customer red flags and how they deal with jobs that haven't gone exactly to plan. And we talk about the importance of an online presence and how to land ideal customers. We know business owners are busy, so we've separated the full interview into chapters. If you hover over the time bar, you can skip to the section you want to learn more about. The podcast is sponsored by Payaka, software that helps you sell more, organise your team, and save hours of time. This conversation is packed full of useful advice that you can quickly implement into your own trades business. I hope you enjoy it. So it's really important in any business to attract the right type of customers, type of clients for your business. Tommy, how do you define the ideal customer for your business?
First of all, you've got to ask yourself who your 5-star customers are.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, who are your 1-star customers? They're the ones that you're definitely not going to want to answer the phone to. Yeah. Who are your 3-star customers? Well, kind of fill in the week, keep you busy. Who's your 5-star customers? The ones that you want to serve every single day for the next 5 to 10 years. That's your definition of a 5-star customer.
And for your business, your heating business?
For our heating business,
what's your criteria?
Would normally be a family, i.e. not going for the older generation, going for the family that have kids at home. Normally, it would have been a broken down boiler that started it. However, doesn't necessarily have to be a broken down boiler. Would be middle income. I say middle income. We're not really after the elite in the posh areas. Nice people. I believe that our reviews have always attracted nice people, and we want to carry on serving nice people. And I think if you start your relationship with a customer like that, you really got to be thinking we're not just here to make money today or this week. We want to be serving that family for the next 5 to 10 years. So that's really I think would match up with a lot of other tradespeople's 5-star customer. Maybe not the boiler part, but understanding we're not just there to make money here and now. It's that lifetime value.
And for you, Cathy, what's your...
Yeah, I definitely agree with sort of the repeat customer thing. Some of our customers who use us the most do start to feel like your friends because you get to know them, you get to know their families, and it is either that you've worked for them, their neighbours, or you end up doing jobs for their families. So
and they trust you,
though. Grow like a bit of a network, don't you?
They trust you, and even when something doesn't go right, they trust you.
Yeah.
And it all started off with that first initial relationship, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like it might be that something's, like you say, not always gone right, but it's how you've sorted it out, and so they've still come back to you. Not because of the problem, but because of how you sorted it and because of that trust that you've built there. Definitely.
Yeah.
And what's the other end of the scale? Like what are those types of customers that you're not really going after? Like,
do you want to take that one first?
That's a dodge.
It's hard, isn't it? Because obviously, like the sort of general mentality is that the customer's always right, and you're always supposed to sort of stick to that. I get a lot of this thing of, because you were a female, I thought that you would have done this better, and that's so annoying. And
what are they talking about?
It took me such a while. So, because we've got sort of obviously the branding of female, if something goes wrong, we do often get customers who will say, well, you're a woman, how could you possibly have let this happen? And it's like, I trusted an all-female company, and and like it's hard because you either get people who are so supportive over that and it works in your favour, but then when something goes wrong, you know, those types of people can be very you know, offended that the fairy godmother didn't wave a magic wand and fix everything, you know, but we are only human, so it's people understanding that you're human beings at the end of the day. You know, I definitely do get that sort of, how could a woman possibly have done this? I had somebody say it to me the other day, and it's hard to answer that, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, go on.
For me, customers that you know and expect, and maybe you've expected it incorrectly, but that you expect are not going to appreciate the work that you do for them. People that think that, you know, you are just a commodity, that you are one of 100 other options out there. Yeah. For us, and I'm not sure about the sparky industry, but I know a lot of people in the heating industry kind of feel the same thing, the same way. Working for builders, I feel as though builders kind of think you're just a plumber. You're just one of the other trades that we are going to employ, and if you don't want to do the work, I'll give the work to somebody else. I
think working direct for customers is much better than working for other trades. Like my partner, he does a lot of plastering work for builders where they come in at a certain stage, and I've done jobs with him like that, and our experience has been so much smoother when we work for customers directly, doing a job the way you're not coming in with a load of other trades. I think customers appreciate you when you deal with customers direct a lot more than when you're dealing with another trade. I'm not saying that they're all always bad experiences.
No, and I'm not saying that all builders need to be avoided, because I know that there's a lot of people that their best customers are builders. Yeah, but you know, every business is different. But for us, the common factor would be: are they likely to just want it cheap? Did they just want it cheap? Are you just a commodity? Will they appreciate you? The other side of the scale for me is, you know, the very affluent may, you know, you're below us, your trades.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's definitely, I've had that experience before where they've sort of almost talked to you like you're a nobody who's just coming in, doing that and going. And also the experience of price coming first. You know, if something's taken longer than they thought and it's an hourly rate, you know, people going crazy because of their expectation of what the price was. Things like that, definitely. I think reasonable people, like, are generally the best ones.
Reasonable people, the ones in the middle.
Yeah,
the ones in the middle.
Definitely.
Yeah,
the middle.
When you see those kind of like those red flags at some point in the process, like presumably like sometimes you're already there quoting for a job, or it might happen later, but if you're quoting for a job and then you realise actually this isn't the type of work I want to do, what do you do then? Like,
you've got to remain professional at all times.
But do you give them a quote still? You don't want that job anymore. You've realised that when you're there. Like,
people always used to say to me, just price it really high and then you won't get it, and then you do get it and then they don't pay, so they find an excuse. So we went through a phase of having sort of a message like that we sent if it was a reason why I didn't want to do a job, rather than being too specific, just saying you know, for personal circumstances we were unable to quote for this job, or due to the nature of the work, something like that. But we've not had to do it a lot recently, but sometimes you go to a job and you think, I don't want to do this job, and then they chase you for a quote, and it's kind of hard to give an explanation as to why. Sometimes you might just get a bad feeling, or you genuinely, or somebody else might have started it, or something like that, and then because you don't send the quote, they put you a bad review, and it's hard because you don't want to offend people. But some jobs you just don't want to get involved with, and I've gone down the road of getting involved in them and ending up.
Because this is the problem with marketing. If you are good at your marketing, ultimately, you know, the general public or B2Bs are going to think they can help me because I've seen them. So your marketing has done what you want it to do. It's cast a net out. It's bringing leads in. But sometimes the people that are coming to you expecting that you can do the work for them, they're not the right fit for you. So it's how do you then, because your marketing was good enough to bring them in, to bring them to the table, how can you let them down? Pre-qualification is, we spoke about that on another podcast. But sometimes customers get through the pre-qualification and you end up in their house, and then you're looking at it, you're looking at the job or you're looking at the customer and you're thinking, I don't want this. I really don't want this. So it'd be good to get a list of reasons why I can't serve you.
Yeah.
In the comments.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like
a good blog post there.
It does sound like the best thing to do though is to be upfront and transparent and well, maybe not give the real reason, but at least be like, right, that for whatever reason this isn't the right job for us. Because I think a lot of people, there is this strategy of like pricing high, but a lot of people might be like, I won't bother sending the quote, and then the customers just get annoyed at you. And
I've done it in customers' houses. I've looked people in the eye and said, I'm sorry, we will not be quoting on this job. And so sometimes the surprise or the disgust, it's like, what do you mean? Is my money not good enough for you? You're not professional if you're not going to quote on this. You're not professional if you don't have the skills to do this. And that's where I think we need the subtle reasons in the comments below. Capacity.
But
that's the best one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we just don't have the capacity to deal with this job.
Yeah.
And then put them onto your competitor that you don't like.
I've definitely tried the don't send the quote price higher so you think it makes it worth your while, and saying but still sometimes people definitely get through. I think one thing that I've noticed as well, at first when I started, if they told me that I already had another electrician that they'd fallen out with and they stood there telling me how awful this other or several other electricians were, and I used to think, oh my god, I can be a hero, and now I think, oh my god, I need to run away because it's like there's a reason why they hate this other electrician, and it's probably because they just genuinely don't understand why they can't do what they want them to do. I had somebody just, like you say, stand and stare me right in the eye the other day and say, well, I don't want you to lift my floorboards to put a socket there. Can't you do a wireless option? And I was like, really? Like, no.
A power socket as well.
Yeah. And then she asked me about battery operated lamps, and I was like, I don't know, could you go to IKEA for that? I'm generally not a retailer of battery operated lighting because I'm an electrician, so generally that kind of contradicts what we do. And you feel like and I know if we go do that job and we take up the floorboards, she won't be happy with the floor after, and I've tried to explain in as much detail as I can. And what I think is really important as well is explaining it not just in person but also in writing if you are going to sort of go down the road of sending the quote, because you can say to somebody all day long, I'm going to chase all your walls out and make loads of mess and there's going to be dust on everything, and then because you've not written it down to prove that you've told them it, then when there's dust on everything and then they complain and you're like, no, I definitely spent a good half an hour going through the effects of a rewire on your house in person. We started even doing like a meeting before a rewire the week before to try and help them prepare the property for that. And I still had a customer who her sister had told her that you pull wires through conduit that's sat in the wall waiting and you don't have to make any damage to the plaster. And then she was really surprised by all the damage that we made to the plaster. But like I say, we'd done a sort of start meeting with her and said, right, you need to tidy this away. This is going to look like this. This is what's going to happen. But I think sometimes people just believe what they want to believe, don't they? And it's best to avoid.
I think providing you've got, providing that you've got the marketing in place that is actually going to attract leads, the more ultimately, the bigger that net is, the more you're going to be able to be picky about who you do want to serve.
Yeah.
And then at some point get to the point that, for instance, we are a rewire specialist. We don't do anything. We just rewire. We send a team in on whatever day you're going to send them in, and that's it. The week after that team's then on to the next rewire. I've got Sparky who shares a unit with me, but it's it's the same in the heating game, isn't it? Are you a all round plumber? Do you do anything that has pipe, that has water or gas running through it, or are you a specialist boiler service and repair person.
Yeah.
You know, it's all down to who you're attracting.
Yeah.
Really.
And you mentioned a moment ago, like you like marketing and like to do with like qualifying people, so to try and identify those red flags earlier. Like what are the kind of steps that you take in your marketing to actually proactively identify those?
Well, we could use Payaka. We could use Payaka to build up a form. What we've seen is not to confuse people or to put people off. You've really got to ask, well, what are the minimum questions that you need to ask online as you know, a web form on your website. But then the next step would be a swift telephone conversation. How we do it and have done it in our business for many years is, hi John, Sue, whoever it is, I just need to ask you 8 questions to see if this is the type of work that we can help you with and if we can do it in the time frame that you require. Nice and polite. Choose your 5, 8 questions. You can always come out of this. This is just to see, is it worth going and doing the survey? Even after survey, you may pick up on something and think, no, we still don't want it. Obviously, we can't build a perfect system, but what we should try to do is build a system that is going to save us the most amount of time.
That pre-qualification thing, though, is a constant dilemma, because like the marketing angle looks at it and says, well, asking less questions means that I'm going to get a higher conversion rate on someone filling out that form. But then, of course, you've not qualified them, so you've got all these like leads that may not be great for your business, and you're spending time doing that. So it is that balance that you say of like you want to filter out as much as possible, but not put off people. Not because, I mean, you could take the real sort of engineer's approach to it and say, right, I need to know all this information before I quote, and then suddenly you stop getting leads in, or it's just putting off the right leads that you want because it's just too hard. There's too many hoops.
But what we have seen recently in the last couple of years, since COVID times, is more remote surveys. So perhaps perhaps survey number 1 is you explain to the customer via your website, via your web page, this is the stage that we will go through. You will need to fill in this form and book in a quick 20-minute video survey. You could possibly do it. So you can just use the technology that's available now, particularly because the world is so used to doing everything online and doing Zooms, to just have a look around.
Does your team do that?
Definitely. No, so we don't really do video surveys at the minute. And obviously, because I'm going to have a newborn in March, and it's my job to go do the quoting, that's something that we are looking at trying to move towards. But it's kind of, I was going to speak to you about this actually. We was looking at moving to Payaka, but it's where to sort of get that information and like how, like there isn't, the current thing that we use does have a customer login, but I've not really explored it. But it's kind of making it so that people can give you that information in a set way, so that everybody gives it you the same way. Sometimes when people send us pictures, especially if we've been to the house before, I mean, sometimes I don't even need pictures if I've been there before. I can quote somebody on a job quite easily, especially if it's something that we do a lot of, like adding an outside light, something like that. But I think definitely trying to get more information from people in terms of like pictures and videos, like very job relevant information before you're going out. It definitely would help you exclude not necessarily nightmare customers, but jobs that are unsuitable for you. I do sometimes go to quote jobs and I'm like, why am I at this job quoting? Like it could have been booked in straight away as an hourly rate job that we could have estimated an hour for, so they've got more or less a quote up front. Or it's just not something that we do at all. We've had quite a few recently, people wanting us to install options where they can plug in backup generators, so that they don't have to do, if with all the power cuts, so that they don't have to sit without power. And it's something I've explored for a couple of different customers, and it's ended up either being too time consuming, too costly, too specialist. So I don't want to go out quoting to those things, but we've had quite a lot of people ring up, and I've had to go down the same road with all of them. But I could have just not gone out in the first place and explained that, or especially stuff like car charging, we don't do that. But the girls in the office know that we don't do car charging. So I think generally the administrator who answers the calls and messages has a roundabout idea of what we do. So sometimes she's able to identify something that doesn't sound familiar and ask me before she books it in.
Yeah.
But you do still sometimes end up at a job where you think, like, I've wasted time, money, fuel,
Yeah.
you know, coming here.
It's the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Not necessarily because we don't want the job, but because I could have done this remotely, or I could have done it without even needing to say anything because I've been here before. I think it's having a good system in place that deals with that a bit, like you've both said, really. Something that puts people through the right hoops in the first place.
Yeah, and it's something that, like, we get asked about, we talk to a lot of people about, and it's something that there's a few places that we've got it in and we're exploring and putting it in. Like, one is like in the job forms that people are filling out on site, whether that's doing a survey or during the form dropping in the image and then bringing that back in so the admin people can see that, or just dropping it in itself. But there's also, what we're looking at developing is allowing you to capture images on those forms that you're talking about. So where you've got those questions, can you upload a picture of, you know?
Yeah, because our girls, when they're on site, if the customer asks for a quote for something else, they complete a quote form, and we get loads of repeat customers through that. So I might have 10 quotes to send that I haven't even needed to go to because they've quoted while they're on site. But if a customer could complete that for us, if we can make that customer friendly, even a customer we've not been to, then that would save us so much time and running around, and also with a, you know, like for me with a newborn baby, what do you do with your baby while you're going in to do a quote? That's not going to be an option for me soon. So there is definitely something like that would be really useful to businesses.
Yeah, I guess even if you had someone who, you know, that didn't quite have your experience but was able to, whilst possibly do the whole quote, they could video it, so if they did need more input they could do it. I guess
the
you need
information
that
we get and the pictures that, or the details that we get, or what I look at, is something that somebody could give you without any of my employees or team members having to go out to site. It's something they could give me. I only need to see what they've videoed. I don't need to necessarily be there. I mean, sometimes I'd prefer to go out if it's a certain job. Like sometimes when they fill out a quote form, I'm like, I still need to go. You know, those, like, there are always going to be those necessities, but I think generally it can definitely be made more remotely. I think I've seen companies who do like, you can build a whole boiler package on their website and buy and order it all, and like I think that's too far away from what we do now and not in a personal experience. But I'm not saying it doesn't work for some things. Like I know people can like pick a whole rewire package on some websites and get a whole price for it. Now I wouldn't want to go that far, but I think there's definitely somewhere in between that could be made. You know, it's better for the environment and it's better for your business financially as well.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, like, language around it is like really important as well. You mentioned there, like when you were talking about the questions that you ask your customers, like the language was very like customer focused, and it like we need to ask these questions to make sure that we can help you with this job. So
to make sure that this is the type of work that we can help you with, the time frame that you require.
Exactly.
It's like really putting it on them, not but it gives you that reason. Well, no, we can't do it in that time frame.
Yeah. And you've also mentioned before about how you use language almost as a qualifier as well, like the way you address customers with like, it's like, hey, hello friends, like that kind of thing.
Mr. Fitzpatrick. Oh, it's a Mister. Oh no, it's a Mister. If it said his name was John, no problem, John. We'll be there. But Mister is another one of them little radars to us. Yeah.
So on that red flag, that customer red flag, Felix and our team actually wrote a little blog post from what people had told him like really annoyed them, and it would just be really interesting to get your reaction to this. So we'll just run through the top 5. Let me know what you think.
Come on then.
So the first one, he's got like the voyeur, so like the customer who's just there watching you constantly, maybe giving advice or asking questions.
Yeah.
Is that annoying? Is that fine?
Sometimes it's some old fella, old lady who just wants a bit of company, just wants a bit of chat. Sometimes it's as simple as that. The one that makes our industry giggle is, I used to be a plumber. Used to be a plumber. Well, what happened to your toolkit, pal? It's one of them. It's customer dependent, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a bit of a joke. We'll go, he's a watcher or she's a watcher.
Yeah.
If they come and sit with you. But like you say, it's either they're lonely or sometimes they really knows it or sometimes they think they know how to do it, but you're there. Or we had that the other week. Yeah, my husband's done 30 years in street lighting, but he's mixed up all the wires on this light and now it's going bang. Right, okay. And yeah, I think definitely. I don't mind it as much now, but when I first, I think if you're not extremely confident, it's not nice being constantly watched.
I guess it must be difficult for someone who's newly qualified.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're on exam.
Yeah.
You know, all over again. Every day that you go to work, somebody's watching.
Yeah, definitely. Ofsted.
What about adding on extras? So, like, can you just look at this?
Just do this?
Can you just, while you're here? Like,
It'll just take a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends if it's a small job or if it's a job or an hourly rate. Welcome it, keep coming. Yeah. If it's a rewire and we've got a fixed pricing, I think it can be really difficult to sort of draw a line and say that's going to cost extra. And it's worse as well if the person who's in charge of how much it's going to cost isn't there. And customers will often say, "Oh no, the electrician who came said that it wouldn't be extra. It would, or you'd knock some off my invoice if I didn't have this bit done." Or I think that one can be really tricky. It just depends how you've got a pricing structure in place. It's definitely one to be careful of.
I would add, it depends where you are, what stage you're at in your business. For instance, if you're relatively new to business and you don't have many customer reviews, opportunity. Can you just do this? So I think if we can just politely make them aware, well, that's not part of my job, of this job that's booked in. If we can just finish the job that we're booked in to do, and then towards the back end of the day, if it is just an extra 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, even if it's an extra half an hour, if you've got enough time left, you've got an opportunity for a review there.
Yeah, and also I think it's like so important then to have that record of what's been agreed to, not at the start. But then I don't, if someone asks for something extra and you're able to say, yeah, no problem, we can do that. It's gonna cost this much extra, and here's.
But this could be where you have the price list in place. To move the radiator whilst on the job, for instance. Well, yeah, that would normally be, if we come back, that would normally be £180 plus VAT. But we can do it on the job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
For
those extras as well, and we covered this in a different topic, those things that are commonly come up, why not put that on the quote as an added extra that someone can look at and add on before you even accept it? And that's the sort of built-in upselling. That's something that we sort of really push for people to do more of.
That must happen a lot in your trade. Or could we just have another socket there?
It's definitely something. We don't have that within our quoting software at the minute, which I think it'd be definitely an advantage, especially with stuff like rewires where you've already got all the floors up. Adding an extra socket isn't going to be a massive job. It just depends, like you say, what stage you're at, and especially what stage you're at in the job as well. Like if you've nearly finished, or I think it just depends on the circumstances in terms of how useful it is. It's harder as well when you've got team out there and it's not just you, because what's been agreed and what's been said often becomes sort of a bit grey and it's a bit hard, and I've been charged extra for this but I wasn't expecting that, but it wasn't originally quoted for. And you need a good way of recording as well if they've done extra work or wasn't included in the price, because especially if it's not you on the job, like if one of our girls does something extra and forgets to tell us, or uses something extra at the van for something extra the last one forgets to tell us, it's hard as well, because sometimes if you've allowed for a certain amount of time in a job, you give a fixed price for that, and then they end up having time to do something extra, like you've still given them an extra service, so you would want to charge for it, but they've done it within the time you allocated, so it's a bit it can be difficult.
This is where I'm pulling it back to. You're looking for opportunities here to, well, it's to some extent, is it customer service or is it you just being bent over by the customer? I'm looking at 5-star customer service. If your team truly believes in 5-star customer service, they're going to be looking for these opportunities to get the review. If you can then put it in their contract that for every 5-star review that team, that person or that team brings back to the business, it's an extra £15 at the end of the month, and suddenly you see your reviews go skyrocketing. What happens when you get more reviews, more phone calls, more trust? You put your prices up. Do you find that if a customer wants something extra that had not previously been agreed, and you okay it, that when you put that onto the team, or could you just do this for them, that you get a bit of kickback from the team as well. It weren't on the original job order, because they're already thinking I'm gone at 4:00. You know?
No, so I've got one of them that seems to always end up doing extra stuff and not telling us, and then it'd only be noticed either if something goes wrong with it, and I'm like, well, why has that gone wrong? So I didn't know we did that.
Yeah.
Or I've noticed something, and I'm like, well, how come that wasn't part of the price? And then it's ended up not being charged for. And then others that are, like you say, they're very much like, well, I ain't got time to do that today. It's a bit of a mixed bag, really. I think it really depends on circumstances with that one. Like, sometimes it is a really good opportunity to go that extra mile. But I think people who are genuine, like customers who are genuine and happy, to sort of pay for anything extra they want doing, they'll usually get in touch with the office and ask for it to be done at the same time while we're there, or something else they've thought of, or or if while they're on site, if it gets mentioned, we tell the girls if there's anything extra that they need doing, really it needs to come back to the office before it's okayed. But it's hard to get, like I say, something in practice. Like, it's all about processes, isn't it? Like, being able to upsell when you send a quote is great. But that's quite different to somebody asking for them to do something extra, because it depends what the client's intentions are as well. If they're thinking, oh, no, I want that doing. Sometimes you get people who say, oh, I don't want you to do this and this with, I don't know, like say, I want you to add the socket and I want you to move a socket, but I'm going to change all the rest of my socket fronts myself, and they've got a big stack of them on the side, and you're like, all right, okay. And then when you get there, oh, while you're here, if you've got time, and it's a bit like, well, that's just making it. But then you do get some whole message like the morning or the day before and say, oh, I've got another light. I seen another one that I liked while I was there. Can you just change this light as well?
At B&Q last night.
Yeah, exactly.
8:00 last night, yeah.
And then they're genuinely happy to pay for that extra thing.
And then you've already travelled to the job. You're already there as much.
Yeah, so you might charge them an extra 15 minutes of time doing it. Or if they've got an apprentice with them that, could do it while they were there, while they're doing something else, it might be worth doing it and getting that extra 5-star review, going that extra mile. I think it's just the circumstances based on that, really.
Yeah, it's the biggest takeaway, really. It's just as long as you've got that process, you've got a way of dealing with it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
What about, how do you feel about people asking for discounts?
At what point?
Any point. Start?
I think it depends on it. Sometimes you get people who get a quote through and they go, oh, actually, I had a budget for this and it's this much. Yeah. And I'm kinder to them. And then sometimes you get people who have paid for, who've ordered an electrical call out and then start saying, well, you were only here for 2 minutes. Well, that's because you can't change the light bulb and I've got the common sense to change the light bulb. Stuff like that. It depends, doesn't it? When I hate when people say, can I pay cash and will it be less? Because it's straight away, it's like well, we're a VAT registered business and by law, that's how I need to operate my business to be.
And the bank charges an extra 1%.
Yeah, so you should say it costs you extra.
Cash in.
Yeah, it's an extra 1% for cash.
Yeah. I hate those questions. I like just to, if they say, can I pay cash and will it be cheaper? I'm just like, we don't go down that road.
I once had a customer, I went out to do the survey, who, before I'd walked out the door, asked me if there would be a discount available. I'd not even sent the quote yet. What I did pick up, I'd not even sent the quotation, and she was asking for a discount. This particular one, because it always, I remember it because it's in a nicer area. No, not really, really posh, but it's in a nicer area. But what I remember from that quotation is, I think I was the 5th or 6th business in to quote.
Yeah. So got a load of people.
Alarm bells. Woo, 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 woo. I know some people that ask on quotation, how many companies will you be having come round to quote? Who will it be that coming out to quote? I'm not saying that that's for my business, but I know that some people do that, and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because sometimes you get people who will have 3, and sometimes when they mention, oh, I've had another electrician and they said this, and sometimes those people do go ahead and sometimes they don't, and it's hard to gauge whether they're, I think maybe if people have 3 companies and choose one, that's probably the maximum I'd expect. But like you say, 5th in, it sounds like they're just wasting people's time, doesn't it?
They-
I think a
they're
lot of our
wasting their
customers
time,
just
though,
use
as
us.
well.
If they're happy with the price, they go with it. If they're not, then they'd start looking at other quotes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's their time as well, you'd think.
You've got to think about it. How long for the survey person to come in and have a look around? How long on Rewire? 2 hours? I don't know. It's not
20
my
minutes.
game. 20 minutes. Okay. But certainly, complicated heating quotations, you could be in there for over an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. So to get 4 or 5 people to come round, you're wasting your own time.
Yeah.
And why are they wasting their own time for the saving? Whatever saving they imagine that they're going to get. Can you just knock this off?
I think this one is interesting because we talked about it yesterday and we talked about it, seeing it from the customer's point of view, but and taking away barriers. But get late payments, getting paid late, is that a problem that you see?
Not so big for our company. Does it exist? Yeah, it does exist. Touch wood, we've always been paid for every large job. Have we walked away from smaller payments? Yeah. I think, after the 4th or 5th email and numerous phone calls, if the customer's dodging you, I'd rather just not waste any more time chasing them. But it kind of comes back to, do you have the system in place to make it easier to identify your better customers and to have a process in place to actually making payment easy for them. If it's easy for them, you're far more chance of getting payment. If you make it difficult for them, there's a chance that they might forget when they're messing around with whatever they've got to do with the kids. This kid's got to be at that club, that kid's got to be at this club. Next thing, next door neighbour's cat died or whatever, and then they went on holiday, and before you know it, that £90 invoice has been put all the way to the back of the agenda. So what can we put in place to just make it easy for them? Systems.
Yeah, I think we have invoice reminders that are automated, but then sometimes people get annoyed if they have paid but the system's not caught up yet, and then they get a reminder. So it's
this
like
isn't
if
pay
everyone,
by the way.
If everyone paid on time, then other people who they wouldn't be getting that. We wouldn't need to use them automated reminders. I think it's interesting that we would go and do an electrical job. Our terms say that you pay on completion of the work and receive your invoice. We'll invoice usually the same day or the following day, within a couple of days, and people receive those invoices, don't pay them, and then a week or 2 weeks might go by, and so those are now showing as a week or 2 weeks overdue.
Yeah.
But if you went to the shop to buy something, you don't take it away and then think about it 2 weeks later. I think it's quite interesting that if you want to order an item that's similar sort of cost to what a job is, you wouldn't expect to take it away and just think about it in 2 weeks' time. But it does happen quite a lot where one of our administrators who's just doing 2 days now, one of her sole jobs that I've put in place for her is chasing up invoices that are anything over than a week overdue, because we do say payment on receipt of your invoice. And like I said, they've already done and completed the work, they've had the stock installed into the jobs, there's no reason not to pay that soon. So then she's chasing him up, and it's not a nice job to do either, really, because you feel a bit like you're being a pest. But to be reasonable, there's no reason why. I mean, it would be nice to give everyone a facility to pay, to say, right, here's your bill before I leave. But then it's kind of putting an electrician in a position of, taking payments, which isn't really part of an electrician's role, and it's a bit uncomfortable for them. Do you do that?
Not electricians, but the gas engineers taking payment on the job.
Oh, really?
For small, for small works.
Yeah.
For small works, it's less than £200. It's getting a payment on a job. But also, we mentioned this on a previous podcast, didn't we? For small works, why not bill up front?
Yeah, well, we've got that. That's definitely something I've thought about a lot for call outs. We can book you this call out in. Yep, they'll be here that day. So you need to pay before we set off. And I think companies do that. I don't think if British Gas said to you, you can book a boiler engineer in, it's just this much. You just need to pay that now, and then they'll be out to you at 2 o'clock today. I can't imagine someone batting an eyelid, but I don't feel that confident to do that because I think it'd people
I
raise
think that's a lot of
eyebrows.
trades. I think a lot of trades think exactly the same thing. You know, they're it's almost like they don't trust themselves. Hear me out. You know, it's almost as though they believe that the general public, all the general public, don't trust all trades. So it's like a double barrier. You know, but ultimately it might just be inside the tradesperson's mindset.
It's you that's feeling like
that
that, not
our
them.
industry doesn't do this, so I can't do this, and it's just trying to get over that barrier. Well, like I said, if you call British Gas and say I want to book in for a boiler service, not only would they try to upsell you onto the service plan, but they'd charge you up front.
Yeah, well, I booked someone to come fix my washing machine the other week, and I paid up front for that, and I didn't never even occurred to me that was a different thing to what we do.
Yeah.
But the person who takes the card payments is the person who books the job in, so it would be probably more efficient for her to say at the time that she's booking the job in, if it's a call out, if you pay the minimum call out fee
standard
up front,
call out is X pound plus VAT. If
that
there's
payment
anything
now,
additional,
get a separate invoice.
But the standard call out like covers you for the time, which ultimately might be something very, very simple, like flicking the switch or putting in a light bulb.
I definitely had to pay a call out fee. Last weekend, water started pouring through my ceiling. Before they'd even come out, they had a call out charge. And as soon as that was paid, then they were happy to get us booked in and get someone out. Have either of you ever had to go down the debt collector route?
Personally, not for us. There is debt collectors that frequent Facebook communities. You know, we're not naming any names, but they're always getting recommended, and they basically specialise in helping out other trades. But you know, where is the line? You know, I get the idea, the principle of get a debt collector on them because they're outstanding £150, which they promised to us, they agreed, you know, they signed the document, we did the work, but ultimately it's like, is it worth it to your company? You know, do you really need it, and is it worth the time, headache, aggro, and the possibility that this may come back as a negative review? However, if it's a fair few £1,000, if it's a rewire, for instance.
See, I'm more the opposite of that approach. Like, if I've had like not serious complaints in terms of that they were genuinely something seriously wrong, but more like the complaints have been about a job of a higher value, those are the ones that I've tended to back down from sooner. I've done a couple of small money claims for a few £100s, and that's convinced them to pay. And like I said, I've had my husband angrily ringing up the odd person who's not rude, but being quite, you know, look, you're messing her about, she's asking you for this money, especially if it's been another guy, because he's found he's got a much better response. Like, we had a company who opened a cafe recently used us. It was about £2,500 worth of work. When it came to paying, they started questioning stuff on the invoice. We confirmed the things on the invoice were correct. They then said, oh, that's fine, I'll pay. It then went on weeks and weeks. Some days they'd send 50 quid, some days they'd send 150 quid, some days they'd just ignore the phone, and he was getting my husband was getting more and more angry about it. So he ended up ringing the male business owner, who I kept getting put onto to deal with, and his response was to pay within about, I think it was about 10 days he paid. So it's like, I think sometimes a small claims court sort of procedure has been something I've preferred to do, but then sort of like all this angle ringing, but they've only been for smaller amounts. Whereas when I have had a couple of customers who've, like, I had a rewire once where she made a complaint about it, and this is the person who thought that you weren't going to damage the plaster to rewire the whole house. We'd done it all, we'd explained it all in person. I'd done a meeting the week before and gone through everything, and she'd had a plasterer on site who I was working on other jobs with, who said to me, you just damage what you need to damage, I'll do all the patching, don't worry. He then backs out of the job, and it was nothing to do with us. He was just a completely separate company, just happened to know him. And then she was left with all this plastering to do. She then started complaining about the plastering, and then started complaining about the rewire. She got an IC involved. Like, it ended up being a really substantial complaint, and did underpay by over £1,000. And I wasn't. It was causing me too much stress to want to proceed with that one. Whereas you seem to be more in favour of sort of the smaller amounts, not. Like, I was just getting so stressed out with it, I just ended up leaving it in the end.
I'd walk away from smaller amounts.
Yeah, see, I've pursued smaller amounts and found I've got them. I don't know why. It's weird, that, isn't it?
It's really important now these days to have a really clear online presence. Like, what do your companies do to have that online presence, and where have you seen the most success in terms of that converting into leads and sales coming into your business?
Well, from the conversation earlier on, we're kind of on two different sides here, aren't we? You more social media?
Yeah, so I'd say I didn't have a website for ages. I was straight on Facebook quite quickly. Got a Facebook page and stuff set up. Then a website came after that. We do get quite a few leads through the website, and then we've set up other social media platforms like Google My Business, that sort of stuff. But all our online posts and things are all done through auto scheduling on that Recur Post app, what I told you about. It's like 25 quid a month. You fill it with content and it just does it all for you, and you just have to periodically renew the connection. So I'd say we're getting the most input, the most sort of people coming back to us through Facebook, a bit through the website inquiry page, and then we pay for online presence on Checkatrade and Yell, and we get quite a bit through that as well.
For us, tracking back over the years, the strongest channel's always been the website, coupled with GMB. You know, it's basically Google. They found you on Google. They found a landing page. They found your business on Google. It's difficult to get them to kind of understand, well, where did they find you first? What did they click on first? Did they look at your Google business profile first and then click on the website? Or did they somehow miss that part and come directly onto your website? But for me, it's an online presence via your website is a stronger one for me. We have had social media. We have had leads from social media, but just nowhere near the same sort of volume as having a decent website.
And do you measure the success of like where those leads come from in terms of like that? We talked about it a bit in other areas, but that customer lifetime value, the value of that job, the recurring jobs from that customer, recommendations you get for those different channels.
It's been a while since I had a day-to-day, but yeah, a day-to-day, once a quarter, sit down, go through every incoming lead that's come through, analyse where that incoming lead came from. You know, did it come from Checkatrade? Did it come from which? Did it come from Google, Facebook, wherever? And then somehow trying to track, well, did we win this lead? What was the value of this lead? How much callback did you get to it? And that's an important one. You know, how many times did you have to go back to that job? Some jobs are nice and easy. There's no risk factor. It's nice and easy, in and out. But some jobs, it's like it's not all what seems.
Yeah, I think definitely it'd be nice to be able to track how like successful it's been in terms of you're not having to go back or you're getting further business from that. We don't have that facility within our software now, but I know it's something that you've been working on with Parker. But I think it would be good to be able to... The old software we used before, you could get a quantity of leads within a certain date, like time frame. So how many customers did you create on the system with the source Facebook? And you could prevent the administrator from being able to create a customer without putting a customer source. Can't do that with the software I've got now, which I think is crazy because obviously it's such an important thing to track. But like we spend money on marketing for Checkatrade and Yell without really any ideas whether I need to be spending that money, and it probably comes to not far off £1,000 a month, which would be nice to save if we didn't need it. But it's kind of like just off the top of my head sort of thing at the minute, which isn't very good business like, but
yeah.
We stopped using, I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Yell.com. Yeah. A few years ago when we tracked it down to £303 per customer.
Oh, okay.
Well, still £303 per customer.
That's what it costs you?
Per
I thought that's what they were spending with you.
No,
gosh, wow.
Per customer.
Yeah, it'd be nice. We've only been using Yell for a few months, but I've definitely noticed us get busier, but I don't know if that's in correlation to using Yell or other things. It's just off the top of my head, but it'd be nicer to be able to, because with Yell as well, you've got to sign up for 12 months, so it was like a big commitment to say, right, yeah, I'm going to do that. Check a trade, the subscription we're on, I can cancel at any time. So
I guess the thing those like lead generating sites are good for is supplementing those like consistent sources of like your own internal leads coming in through your website or through your Facebook page or whatever stuff that you're doing. It does at least allow you to say, right, we need more work or less work at any given point in time.
But the seasons still come and go. You know, yes, it will add more leads, but it will add more leads at the time that you were getting more leads via other channels. So it's not plugging the gap. You know, it's not filling in the summer months, but it is making, you know, giving more work opportunities throughout the year. But it costs as well.
In your experience, like, what are the best ways to stand out from the crowd? What are the best ways to show that you are different?
You've got an easy one, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I suppose obviously being a female electrician does make us stand out quite a bit. It's not something I intentionally use to stand out, but I think branding, we are branded as a female electrician, but our brand is a circle, a yellow circle, and people often say, I've seen your van, because they see the big yellow circle, or they'll see a van that's got yellow on it and think it's our van and go, oh, I thought I saw your van the other day, but then it was one of the car hire companies have got yellow circles in their vans too. So I think a brand, definitely. You mentioned earlier about, I think it was about being present, so that, I think it was with the YouTube videos, so that people know then who you are to come back to you. Well, if you build a brand and people know who you are. So I don't think marketing and getting customer, like trying to find a reason why a customer needs you, but trying to make a customer know who you are is more important, so that when they do need you, you're the first person they think of. And so having a noticeable brand definitely does that, and it makes you stand out. And I think then if people can see your brand in the same way they'd see a big company's brand, then they trust you more as well. Like example, if British Gas have got a name, you know, but they are human beings behind British Gas, believe it or not, you know. So if people think, oh, British Gas, I trust British Gas, I trust British Gas, I don't know why, I just do, just because it's so well known. If you can become sort of that sort of league of brand, then that's definitely, obviously British Gas is huge, but I'm just meaning that sort of trustworthy way to people, then that definitely it'll definitely make you stand out.
What we did from an early point were we used a slogan all the way through as marketing, on the website, on the brochures that we handed over to the customer. On the back of it would say the most reviewed boiler installation business in the region. We're not saying we're the best. We're just like really hammering home, check out those reviews. And when potential customers checked out the reviews, you know, they speak for themselves.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I think reviews definitely is the other one, isn't it? So
we talked a lot about identifying the right customers for you, and that process for some people I think is like quite daunting. Like setting that up for your business is like, I know you run Built to Last, which helps people with that. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, 4 or 5 years ago, we started up a Facebook community called the Boiler Business, heating engineers only. There is a few sparks in there, actually, to tell the truth. And what we saw from starting that community was there wasn't enough help out there for the trade businesses to actually talk about, you know, the business side of the trade. Having done a fair bit of training myself, we basically wrote a one-day training course, and that one-day training course then turned into a 6-month training course, where we basically focus on a lot of what we spoke about over the last couple of days. We speak about foundations, your time, your money. We really hammer home on marketing, different aspects of marketing, websites, social media, the creation of content, and what is content, what is its use, and then getting into systems, which is clearly where Payaka became attractive for me. What is systems? It all starts with customer journey. You know, we need to understand and map out the customer journey. Then we need to look at what software can we find that's going to help us provide that customer journey, but also what software can we find to help manage the job and manage the team. And then really the back end of Built to Last is team, building the team. What do we need to look out for? Is it all going to be in-house? Is it all going to be engineers? How much admin do we need? What team can you outsource? We're not necessarily, we're not big companies, are we? We can't afford 15 members of staff, so it's we have to outsource some work. So who's that going to be? So that's in a nutshell is what we've been doing for the last 4 years. We've Built to Last, and we look forward to carry on delivering that in 22-3.
Cool. Where do people find out more about that?
Oh, that sounds like a plug. theboilerbusiness.co.uk.
Cool. Thank you very much. That's it for this episode. I hope you found the information we shared useful. If you'd like any support on the topics covered, leave a comment below the video or head over to the Payaka website and we'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the conversation, please support the channel by subscribing and liking the video.